is up everyone, Movie Worm back again with another video, and today is going to be my top 10 horror movie sequels. And I came up with this idea the other day after going to see A Quiet Place Part 2. I was kind of blown away by the film, and it got me thinking, how many other great horror sequels have we had in the past? And I mean, there's a lot of franchises out there. You got the Child's Play, the Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraisers and stuff. And it just made me think that there is a lot of horror sequels. So I used to watch lots of these as a kid. I mean, sometimes I even watched part 4 or 5 of something before the first one. It's just the way I got them on VHS or DVD or whatever. And I thought I'd take a trip down memory lane here and give you my top 10 horror sequels. Now this can be part 2, 3, 4, it doesn't really matter. But I am keeping it one movie from each franchise. So we'll keep the list nice and fresh as it goes on. And before I do get into the top 10, I have 3 honourable mentions. So let's just get straight into those. First up for my honourable mention, I do have Insidious 3. Now this is directed by Lee Whannell, who has gone on to make The Invisible Man, of course, and a movie called Upgrade, which is meant to be really, really good. I just haven't got around to that yet. So I feel like he is a really good upcoming director, and I feel like this is a very underrated film. I didn't expect it to be this good. The second one was kind of a miss for me. I don't think it was anywhere near good as the first. So going into this one, I just thought it would be a cheap jump scare fest, but it wasn't. It was actually a really good story and a well put together film, and quite scary at times too. Next up we have Paranormal Activity 2. This builds on what the first one gave us and gave us more of the same really, but I do think it's a slightly better film. However, because it's so familiar, I didn't put it in this list, but I think there's some horrifying scenes in there, especially towards the end with that neck break. Wow, that is grim to watch, it really is. And I like the way this house has all the CCTV footage set up around there, instead of the husband in the first one having to put the tripod on every night, filming what's going on in the room. So Paranormal Activity 2 nearly got in there. And the third one is Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Now I know if I was going to pick a Halloween film, a lot of you wouldn't have expected me to put Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers in there. It would have been a different Halloween. But I have a lot of nostalgia for this film. I know it divides opinion in the Halloween fanbase. But for me, I like how brutal Michael is in this film, especially the start where he just gets that nurse's head and shoves her on the nail there and the music kicks in. I think that's such a cool Halloween moment. But the story is a little bit all over the place. I know there's 2 cuts of this film. I have only checked out one of them. And I need to give this a rewatch to consider it being in a top 10 horror sequels. But those 3 did nearly get in there. But let's just get into it with number 10. First up at number 10, we do have The Conjuring Part 2. This sees Ed and Lorraine Warren travel to London in order to investigate a poltergeist that is sort of taken over this Enfield house, and this became known as the Enfield case. Now, I don't think this is as scary as the first film, but I do think that it's a better storyline. I appreciated the way this film unfolded, and we learned more and more as Ed and Lorraine start to investigate what's going on. And I love the way James Wan has filmed this whole movie. It sort of takes you to the time period. It almost feels black and white even without being black and white, if that makes sense. You get a very rustic feel of what he's trying to go for there, and it sort of just takes you inside this terraced home in the middle of this busy street really, and you feel like you're there at times. Now I did mention that it wasn't too scary compared to the first, but one moment that always stands out for me is the crooked man. I mean, you really just don't see that coming. It's not really a jump scare, it's more about, whoa, sit back in your seat and just see what's going on there. I am a crooked man, I walk a crooked mile. I mean, he's quite horrifying to look at, and I like the characters of the kids who live in this house. You can tell they're really petrified as to what's going on in their home. So I love The Conjuring 2. I've only seen it a couple of times, but I thought it was so much better than that third movie we just got. And the story is better than the first for me. The Conjuring is a brilliant film though, but I just prefer Part 2. And there is a few films in this list where I do prefer the sequels over the original, which I will mention when I get to them. Not all of them, just a few. And The Conjuring 2 is one of them. So number 10 is The Conjuring 2. Number 9 is going to be Hostel 2. Now, I didn't hold too much hope for this film, I'm not going to lie. I just thought it was going to be a quick cash grab because of this newfound subgenre that had surfaced and everyone was referring to it as torture porn. I don't know if that's quite the right name, but that's what it was getting called. However, I was really surprised by this film. It builds on the events of the first one, and it has a group of girls in this one instead of a group of guys, but that is not the only change, because what I like about this film is you see more of this hunting club and how they operate, and it does have a side story of these two rich men who are looking to do their first murder, if you like, in this warehouse where it all takes place, of course, where this hunting club operates. And I like the way you see how they do their little bookings and stuff, how they transfer the money, they're bidding on people. Because when these girls go into the hotel, their passport is automatically scanned to this kind of hunting club app. And there's a few horrific scenes in that film. Who can forget the young girl being murdered in that bathtub at the start, with that woman just whacking the sword against the skin and then just cuts her throat. It's quite horrifying to watch. But there's some more towards the end as well, with that young kid who is murdered. There's a few twists and turns on the way with some of the characters as well. So I think Hostel Part 2 is quite a clever sequel actually, and I think I prefer it just a little bit over that first one. So number 9 is Hostel 2. Number 8 is going to be Friday the 13th Part 3. 3D. Yes. Now, I didn't know whether to go with Part 6 or Part 3 here, but I just hold so much nostalgia to Part 3. I have fun with both of the films, but I have watched this way more times. I used to own it on VHS, this and the first one, and I constantly used to watch them two films from this franchise, and I just have a lot of fun with it. I mean, it's a decent slasher where you can just sit back to and not think too much about. I love the opening scene where he kills the two store owners, and then Friday the 13th Part 3D just comes on the screen there. And of course, this is where Jason gets his iconic hockey mask, because he doesn't wear it till this film, and he gets it off that character Shelley, who's another fun character. I love the way he's just teasing everyone through the film. And I really like Richard Brooker's portrayal of Jason in this one. I think he's one of the better Jasons. I like Kane Hodder, but I think I prefer Richard Brooker. I just love the way he walks and stuff like that. And of course, this was 3D, and you can tell when watching it, where there's just like poles being pointed at the camera and stuff. I think a guy's head gets squashed in this, and the eyeball goes towards the screen, but that's part of the charm for me. However, it is very noticeable when you watch this. But I like the whole thug gang as well, who are trying to break into the camp and stuff. Jason just deals with them straight away. There's pitchforks through stomachs and stuff like that. So yeah, I like the final little battle as well between the main female protagonist, I'm really sorry I forgot her name, and Jason. I just think it's a good little way to end the film. So I have a lot of fun with Friday the 13th Part 3, and there's a lot of decent little kills in there as well. So number 8 is Friday the 13th Part 3. Number 7 is going to be a film that was really surprising to me, because the original is such a masterpiece and this one had a lot to live up to. And even though it's not better than that first film, I think this is a pretty damn solid sequel, and that is Psycho 2. This one sees Anthony Perkins reprise his role as Norman Bates, and after 22 years of rehabilitation, he is allowed out of prison. He's a free man again, and he just wants to live his life, and he gets a job as a chef and stuff, but the community aren't too happy about his release, and they don't believe that he should be forgiven for the crimes he committed in the past. And you kind of sympathise with Norman a bit here, because bodies start to pop up here and there, murders start to occur, and you don't quite know if it's someone teasing Norman, someone trying to set him up, or you don't know if it's him just gone totally mentally ill and he is in fact committing these murders himself. And it keeps you guessing throughout the film, and that's what I love about it. It gets you involved as a viewer. I love whodunit films, and I never expected this from Psycho 2, because he is such a well-known killer from the first film, and I had no idea that this film was going to make you question if Norman Bates, this total psycho, as the movie suggests, was not capable of the murders taking place in this one. So Psycho 2 is a very, very clever film and just has you on edge to the end, and Norman Bates is just a brilliant character in this once again, played by Anthony Perkins, of course, who gives another phenomenal performance. And I think it was a really, really good idea for this sequel. So, number 7, Psycho 2. Number 6 is going to be a film that I have mentioned in this video. It is A Quiet Place Part 2. Yes, look, this is the film that inspired me to do this list. Admittedly, I have only seen it once, but I think it deserves its place in this top 10 because it instantly made me think that it was one of the best horror sequels I had ever seen. The way John Krasinski directs this film is masterful, and it was one of the best cinema experiences I've ever had. Thankfully, all the audience around me was really quiet. They were there for the same experience I was. And it really did work. I mean, he just nailed this direction down. The sound design and everything was spot on. I loved all the characters, like Emily Blunt. She was just amazing. But a welcome addition was Cillian Murphy, a character you really get behind. There's some really tense moments in this film, and a lot of people do complain about the very end of it, but for me it was kind of perfect. I loved the way this movie ended. I didn't have too many gripes with it. I just thought it was a brilliant sequel and takes place straight after the first one, which for me always works. By the way, we have one of the best opening scenes to a horror movie ever. I mean, it's just a brilliant opening 10 minutes. So, A Quiet Place Part 2 would be a crime to not get on this list. Even though it's a fairly brand new film, I do prefer it over the first one and think it deserves its place on this list. So, number 6 is A Quiet Place Part 2. Number 5 is going to be Saw 2. Now, for me, this was kind of like Hostel 2. I just wasn't interested in this film. I thought it was going to be another cash grab. And there was a few bad horror films coming out that year, but lo and behold, I was wrong once again. This was a solid sequel. I love the whole story path it takes with these contestants in the house, and they have to play their own game as they maneuver, from room to room. They're all like dying in front of each other because they can't seem to beat the game that's been set up for them. Some of the traps here are really well thought out, especially Obby's one where he could burn to death if he doesn't make it through properly. And who can forget Amanda being thrown into that big pit of used needles there by heroin addicts and stuff. Oh my god, that's a pretty grim scene to watch. And I love Eric Matthews as a character as well. He's just a hard-ass cop who's determined to find his son that John Kramer has, set this game up for on his own and stuff. And he only has to follow the rules, and I like the way this ending is all explained. I won't go into detail, but I did not see that coming whatsoever. I just thought it was such a clever ending. It really was. And the second best Saw movie for me out of the whole franchise, and I just love it to death. I watch this constantly after I watched it for the first time. I just watched it on a weekly basis for quite some time there because I just thought it was so clever. So Saw 2 is coming in at number 5. Number 4 is going to be Child's Play 2. This is such a fun slasher film, and it only runs at about an hour and 20 minutes, but it's just entertaining from start to finish. They don't waste a second of that runtime at all. And the first film is really good too, but I just feel like Chucky is at his absolute best here. I mean, he's kind of in the background in the first movie until about halfway through, but here he is centre stage and just on top of his game. He's good in all the other films as well, but he's just at his absolute best in Child's Play 2. I love the voice work Brad Dourif does here, and some of the quotes he comes out with when he's got the knife to Kyle's neck and he just says, "Shut up and drive before I kick your fucking teeth in." And some of the kills in this are really good too. I mean, especially Beth Grant, who plays that annoying ass character in every film she's in, is just beaten to death with that ruler there from Chucky, and he's relentless. The third act as well, where his arm is just cut off and he just sticks a knife in there and he's ready to go. The guy is absolutely relentless in this film. I love how angry he gets as well when things don't go his way. Like I mentioned Kyle there, she's probably my second favourite character in the whole Chucky franchise. She's such a badass female protagonist to get behind. So, Child's Play 2 is a film I have seen many times before, and I have fun with it each time I revisit it. So, number 4 is Child's Play 2. Number 3 is going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Now, I know a lot of people are starting to love the second movie a lot more these days. New Nightmare is another personal favourite of mine. But Part 3 for me is the best in the franchise and definitely better than the original. It's just got so much fun factor, kind of like Child's Play 2, where it's just entertaining from start to finish. I feel like they found a fine balance there of Freddy Krueger, where he's kind of funny, but in a very, very dark way. I mean, after this film, they go way too comedic, but here, he's just nicely finely tuned with being scary as well. And the characters in this film are the most memorable, I feel, because everyone thinks that they're crazy, but they all come together in this mental institute and are able to fight Freddy in their dreams together. They all get these special powers that they've enhanced when they're in the dream. Who can forget the Wizard Master, of course? But I just love Terran and Kincaid as well. They are great characters there, and I love some of the kills that you get that Freddy does in this film, especially when Phil is, you know, walking along there with the veins popping out of him, and Freddy just cuts them loose and he just falls to his death. Terran, who is the ex-drug addict, and he says, "Come on, Terran," with the needles on his arm, on his fingers instead of the claw, and he says, "Let's get high," and just sticks them in it. I mean, it's just a really, really finely tuned Freddy, like I said, and a brilliant third installment to this franchise. So yeah, it's one of my favourite horror movies of all time, I'd say. So number 3 is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Number 2 is going to be George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Now, he already made cinema history with Night of the Living Dead. He practically invented these type of zombies that we see in modern movies nowadays. And I just think Dawn of the Dead is one of the best films ever made, to be honest. I mean, I love the fact that it all takes place in this shopping mall, and these 4 characters have to just survive in there. You know, they're holed up in this little corner of the roof, but they just go down for supplies whenever they need it. They've got the whole supermarket to themselves. I mean, I love Ken Foree's character, who plays Keenan Rockmore's dad in that show, Keenan and Kel. He's running around with a damn sniper rifle, for God's sake, and he just gets this big bag of chocolate there and they're just having a laugh about it and stuff. But it's just a really, really fun film, and I think the location helps with that. But the zombies aren't the only thing that these characters have to be wary of. Of course, you get the biker gang coming in towards the end there, and that guy who just straps himself to that arcade seat there, and he makes a grave mistake because the zombies just rip him apart. It's quite a gory film. I think the only downside to this is the way the zombies look, because they're just sort of spray painted blue there. And if they had a better look to them, I think this would have made it so much more of a better movie, but it's still a solid film for me. I can't let the look of the zombies take away all the entertainment I get from Dawn of the Dead. So, for me, Dawn of the Dead, best zombie film ever made. And that it comes in at number 2. Number 1, though, is a film I was kind of humming and hawing whether to put in here, but after giving it some thought, the first one is a full-blown horror sci-fi film, and this one has a lot of horror elements in there, and it is in my top 5 films of all time, and that is Aliens. I never know where to start when I talk about this movie because there's just so many good things going for it. It's entertainment from start to finish. You're just watching it going, how can movies get better than this? I mean, I love the fact that Ripley has to sort of overcome her past there by taking on the motherhood role of Newt because she lost her daughter. She's been in deep sleep for like 58 years there. And you've got so many great characters like Hudson, played by Bill Paxton, who just absolutely steals the show with all the great one-liners. You know, 17 days, we're not going to last 17 hours, or game over, man, game over. He just, you know, top tier character. You got Vasquez and stuff, Hicks. They all just work together amazingly on screen, and like I said, there is some horror elements in there where you've got Ripley and Newt locked in that room with the facehugger because that slimeball Burke locked them in as he wants to take an impregnated human home and stuff. So, and you've also got Newt who's sort of locked on the lower deck there, and Hicks and Ripley are going to try and burn through it to get it out, and then this big queen alien just pops up behind it. It's pretty horrifying stuff. The third act of this film is exceptional with Ripley's little rescue mission going on. For me, this is a 10 out of 10 movie, and just has to be number one on this list. So number one for me is Aliens. Okay guys, I hope you all enjoyed this top 10 horror sequel list. What are your top 10 horror films, sequels? Leave them down below. I will get back to you in the comments like always, I promise. Is there any films that should have been in here? Is there any franchise films that you would have put in ahead of another one? For instance, would you have put Nightmare on Elm Street 2 in there instead of 3? Let me know down below. It'd be great to hear all your thoughts. And there is some more top 10 movie lists down below if you want to check them out. If you want to subscribe, it's up to yourself. We've got a lot more videos coming, of course. Thanks so much, guys. Take it all easy, and I'll see you all next video.